We are introduced to a crazy fantasy world filled with monsters and adventurers. Many people in this world want to go into the mythic labyrinth and collect insane loot and fight giant monsters. Still, there are very few A-ranked adventurer parties. A-ranked parties are a group of the best adventurers, or the strongest, and often they get the hardest missions but the best rewards. This is when we meet our protagonist. His name is Yoke Feldio, and he is a red mage. We find Yoke in his worst moment. He is quitting his party and getting into a heated argument with its members. Yoke has had enough of their treatment, and he wants to quit and go on his own. Simon Berkeley is an A-ranked knight and the leader of the party. Simon has no respect for Yoke and basically thinks Yoke is a total joke. Still, Simon wants to know the reason behind Yoke quitting all of a sudden. Yoke explains that while he is not on the front lines, he does a lot, but they do not give him any rewards or loot. He has to pay for his own magic gear and often spends a lot of money on every mission. Yoke tries to get some support from Camellia. She's a priestess of the party. Camellia does not care about Yoke and tells him to just shut up and leave. He is weak and useless anyway, so the party will not lose much. Simon gives Yoke one last chance. If he just says he is sorry for creating a scene, he will be allowed to stay in the party. Yoke screams at Simon and curses him out. While at first Yoke feels super proud for his decision, soon he realizes that he is now totally alone and nobody wants him to join their party. He is just that weak. Yoke spends days thinking about his next step. He has no money and no job. He goes to the guild administration to get some missions, but there are no solo missions for anyone that weak. The following day, Yoke ends up in a guild tavern and has to break up a fight. A giant adventurer starts to attack a random girl and Yoke steps in. While his magic is not the strongest, Yoke can still win some fights. Using just a simple spell, he is able to take down his attacker. He then realizes that he just saved Marina, a sword mage. Marina recognizes Yoke as they have a shared history. It seems that Yoke trained her when she first wanted to become an adventurer. Marina is joined by Silk and Rain. They are all girls that have their own party and are familiar with Yoke. Yoke explains his situation to them, and he feels bad that he does not have a party of his own. Marina and the other girls invite him to join their party. After thinking about it for a moment, Yoke accepts their invitation, finally ready to start his adventure. Yoke now joins the girls, and they form a new adventurer party. Yoke has a lot of experience being in an A-ranked party, but the girls are newbie adventurers. They are inexperienced and not as strong. Yoke follows them as they explore their first labyrinth with various beasts. For the girls, this is all super hard, but for Yoke, it's a joke. Basically, he went from the hardest levels to now smurfing in the easiest dungeons. Yoke and the girls enter a tunnel that leads deep underground. There, Marina almost gets herself badly hurt by activating one of the traps. Yoke is familiar with this dungeon as he already experienced it. He activates a device called Detective Candela. It's a lamp that finds traps all around a dungeon. Now Yoke leads the girls ahead, being careful of any traps. They go deeper underground and soon they are attacked by zombies. For Yoke, this is no problem as all of his spells work super well on these zombies. The girls are constantly impressed by his powers, but it's no big deal for Yoke. He's just having fun. More and more zombies keep coming, but using his attacks, Yoke takes them all down. The girls help him out. Yoke gives them a power boost so they are more useful. After the battle is over, Yoke decides to prepare some food for the girls so that they can recharge. Marina and the other girls cannot believe that he plans to prepare food for them while they are still underground. The girls have never had a mage like that, and they don't think it's possible to make food in this type of environment. For Yoke, this is nothing unusual. He did it all the time for his part. Since he was a red mage, everyone thought he was weak, so he had to prove himself. For that reason, he knows so much about gear and food that the party needs. Using his spells, Yoke summons an empty pot and fills it with delicious soup. He also has special foods that he can use to make the soup really great. The girls eat the food and they feel great after. Yoke tells them about his past experience and why he learned so much. Marina decides to share her dream with him. She wants to reach the Abyss Gates. Yoke laughs as that is an insane idea. The Abyss Gates are located in the most dangerous dungeon in the world, and they lead to the end of the world. Nobody has reached those gates ever before. Still, Yoke decides that he will help the girls with this mission. They all agree that their party should be called Clover. As they continue their journey in the dungeon, they are faced by a giant creature, a D-rank rock lizard. Now, for starter adventurers like Marina, this is a very powerful monster, but for Yoke, it should not pose any problems. Marina comments right away that she has never faced a monster of this size ever before. Yoke tries to distract the giant rock lizard, hoping that it won't notice the other girls. Still, the rock lizard starts to growl and prepare for his attack. Yoke in that moment decides to act. He has no choice but to attack the giant monster head-on. Using a special chain spell, he traps the rock lizard so that it's unable to move even an inch. In that moment, Marina leaps in the air and activates her special powers as a sword mage. She cuts the rock lizard monster in half with just one slash of her sword. After the battle is over, Marina is super proud of herself, but Yoke picks her up and tells her to rest. She used up a lot of mana in her attack, and now she has to recharge. Marina blushes since Yoke is so heroic and acts like a real gentleman. Later, Marina, Silk, and Rain talk about Yoke and how charming he is. Marina thinks that he is a prince and that he is perfect. Yoke joins in the conversation, but the girls pretend they did not talk about him at all. Yoke decides to use a pickaxe and extract some valuable rocks from the dead rock lizard. While the girls talk about him and praise him, Yoke gets to work. After a few short minutes, he is able to mine all the material he can find. Marina is surprised that Yoke is able to gather so much in such a short amount of time. Marina thinks they should find more rock lizards to find more material. After searching for a few minutes, the Clover Party realizes that there are no more rock lizards in this area. They decide that it's time to move on to the next level and go searching for more valuable loot in higher levels of the dungeon. Yoke warns the girls that on level 5 of the dungeon, there is a monster called the Novice Slayer, basically a monster that destroys new players. Marina is certain that with their teamwork, they can stop that monster. They also decide to start broadcasting their adventures for others to see. In this fantastical world, this is an option for all the adventurers. It's basically being a Twitch streamer, but you are also in the insane fantasy world fighting monsters. Yoke promises to protect the girls and help them defeat any monster no matter how difficult it is. Steel Crab is a C-ranked monster on a higher level in the dungeon. Yoke and his Clover Party are now facing this giant monster. Marina is ready to use her powers right away, but Yoke tells her to hold back. He wants to use his magic to make the monster weak and then she can finish it off. Yoke decides to use a variety of spells on the giant crab monster. He makes it step with his chain spell, then uses a venom spell and various others. Finally, he decides to slam it in the ground so that Marina can slash it with her sword. Something surprising happens when Yoke slams the monster down. It seems that Yoke had too much power and by accident he actually destroyed the monster. The girls are super happy and they cannot believe how strong Yoke is. Yoke is surprised himself since he only wanted to make it weaker. Finally, they reach the treasure of this dungeon. It's a chest with gold. Yoke and the girls decide to return to town and celebrate their victory. In the meantime, we meet up with Simon and his A-rank party. It seems that they are having trouble replacing Yoke. They try to hire another helper, but this person quit after only one day and everyone else has been quitting as the party is horrible. Simon is furious at Yoke even more than before. He realizes how important Yoke was to his party. He tells his party members to never mention Yoke to him again, or he will get really pissed off. Now we learn how the A-rank party has been doing since Yoke left the party. We see Simon leading them into a dungeon with dangerous wolf monsters that are very high level. Simon is confident they can pass this dungeon with no problem as they have done many times before. Still, something goes wrong this time. The wolves are too strong, the team is not working good, and Simon is making all the mistakes. Their new red mage is furious at Simon and tells him he should never be a leader since he is not prepared and has no idea what he is doing during battle. Jamie, one of the members of the party, gets attacked and almost eaten by wolves. She is bleeding a lot, but Camellia, the party healer, does not have any mana to heal her. Simon is confronted by their new mage. He tells Simon that he should have bought more healing equipment, better gear, and better weapons to fight the wolves. Basically, as a leader, Simon messed the entire mission up. Simon in that moment realizes that Yoke did for the team. They did not pay him anything, and he did everything for them, from the gear, the food, and the items used in battle. In the meantime, we see Yoke with his Clover Party having a drink to celebrate their victories. Marina wants Yoke to be the leader of the party since he is so much more experienced. Yoke admits to the girls that he has never been this happy before. At first, he is a bit surprised by their request. He was always the weakest member of his party, so being the leader is something very new for him. Marina and Silk very much think that Yoke would be the perfect leader for their party and that he should accept the challenge. Yoke finally decides that he will be the leader, so they start talking about planning and their gear. Yoke very soon learns that unlike his previous party member, the girls actually know how to save and spend their money. They are careful to not spend too much as they want to buy a base and a home for themselves in the future. Yoke promises that he will help them achieve their dream and he will not change their party too much. He will just assist in the missions. Moments after, they notice that all the newbie players are watching a broadcast. Very soon they realize that they are watching the Clover broadcast. They are all amazed that the red mage called Yoke was able to take down that giant crab. Yoke is shocked that so many players now admire him. He and the girls decide to drink and celebrate all night, and tomorrow they will go to the market for some new gear and potions. Yoke already knows what they must have for further missions. 3 days pass by and Yoke decides to go to the Guild Tavern to find a new quest for his party. There seems to not be a lot of quests at the moment. He is not interested in the super high level ones or the super easy ones. He wants to find something that will help the girls gain more power and levels. The guild administrator makes fun of Yoke since he is always being a good friend and master to the girls. Finally, they find a C-rank quest. It is collection 3 rocks in Yeoman Waterfalls. Yoke is shocked that such a simple quest would be C-rank, but soon he finds out the reason why. It seems that there is a dangerous demon beast in that area, so that is why the quest is so high-leveled. The guild administrator explains that in the past, the quest was D-ranked, but it became too difficult since the demon beast was too powerful. Yoke accepts this quest, and he later meets up with the girls for more shopping and preparations. They are all super hyped for the quest, and they trust that Yoke will help them deal with that dangerous demon beast. Before Yoke and his Clover party leave, the guild administrator wants to talk with Yoke alone. She tells him that his previous party has not been doing so good. They just lost another member, and whoever they add keeps quitting after just one day. She warns Yoke to be careful, since they might want revenge. Yoke decides to keep this in mind, and he goes back to the town to meet up with the girls. What Yoke does not realize is that someone sinister is spying on him. It is very likely that it's Simon who is coming back for revenge. Yoke travels the town, but he realizes soon enough that someone is following him. This person is keeping to the shadows, but they are not really good at being stealthy. Finally, Yoke decides that he has had enough, and he confronts the spy. It turns out that it's not Simon, but Vigio Salek, a E-ranked adventurer. Vigio is an overweight adventurer who has been stalking the girls for months now. He has asked them to join their party numerous times, and every time they have rejected him. It's very obvious that Vigio is just a creepy stalker who wants to harass the girls. Yoke decides to warn him with a simple spell. He tells Vigio to never harass the girls again. Vigio is helpless against Yoke as he lies on the ground. Finally, Yoke meets up with the girls, and they admit that this creepy stalker has been harassing them for months now. Yoke feels sorry for them, but he is glad that now he can protect them. They start talking on their way to the forest. Yoke is shocked to find out that both Silk and Marina are the same age as him. Silk is a dark elf, but she is still very young. Finally, they reach their destination, which is a giant lake and forest. While the nature is beautiful, Yoke notices something upsetting: there are no animals. The girls are confused by this, but Yoke explains. Usually in these types of areas, there are a lot of different animals running around and living there. This place has nothing, no animals in sight. Yoke tells the girls that this is because of the demon beast. It is so dangerous that all the other animals have ran away from this area. The area where Yoke and his Clover party have arrived was known as a beautiful place in the past. They had a very high-level dungeon that hid a magical object that kept the lake nearby filled with crystal clear water. In the forest nearby, many animals lived in peace and harmony, and there was a lot of plants and food for people around. Now the forest area is totally different. It's desolate and scary. There are no animals around. Even the birds have flown away to a safer location. Yoke and his party start exploring the forest. Yoke tells them to be careful, and no matter what, they have to stick together. Yoke also activates the broadcasting camera right away. He wants to document the demon and its powers. He also knows that if the demon is too strong and the guild sees the broadcast, they can send help. The party travels around the woods, and while it is beautiful, it is also creepily quiet. There's no noise, no nothing. Suddenly, they notice something moving in the bushes. Yoke orders the girls to be careful, but they do not have time to prepare. Suddenly, a giant demon beast jumps out in front of them. The demon beast is called Zarnag. It's a B-ranked monster that is very dangerous. Yoke is now shocked, as this type of high-level monster should not be in this area. This area is reserved for low-level adventurers, so this is very strange. The Zarnag starts to growl, and it's very clear it plans to eat the group. The Zarnag beast starts to charge at them, and it's super fast. Yoke orders the girls right away to run away and regroup with the other guild members. Yoke is aware that this monster is too high-leveled even for him, but the girls do not stand a chance. He tells Silk that she is now in charge and she should run as fast as possible. Marina does not want to run, and neither do the other girls. They all join Yoke and tell him that they will fight together. Yoke is not too happy with their choice, but still accepts it. Marina is confident in her skills, and using her sword, she tries to slash the beast. Yoke tries to stop her, but it all happens so fast. Marina goes for the attack, but the Zarnag demon beast is too powerful and too strong. It slashes her and trows her around. Just before the Zarnag is about to eat Marina, Yoke uses his spell and saves her. Silk then uses her Dark Elves power to try and keep the beast from not moving so fast, and the other girls uses her magic thunder spell to shock it. Yoke is actually proud of the girls, as it seems they pulled off a pretty good attack. He hopes that the beast is now critically damaged, but soon his dreams totally fall apart. The Zarnag demon beast comes out of the dust, and it's totally fine. They did no damage to it, they only made it more angry. In that moment, Yoke realizes that this is no ordinary demon, and he starts to doubt if the Clover party is enough to take down something as strong as this demon. The Zarnag demon keeps charging at them, and Yoke realizes that the girls are in big trouble. Marina is injured, Silk is too scared, and Rain used a lot of her mana in that thunder attack. She needs some time to recharge, and also her spells are just not as strong enough to take down this monster. Yoke starts to think he cannot panic. He has to come up with an idea to take down this monster fast. Silk tries to pull her own attack, but the beast just deflects it and keeps coming. Suddenly, seeing Rain prepare for a new attack, Yoke comes up with a final strategy. He's been working on a special finishing move for quite some time, a combination of alchemy and magic, his own attack. The problem is that Yoke has never tested this attack in combat, so he is not sure if it will work. Still, with no other choice, he tells the girls the plan. Marina has to hold off and charge up her mana for a final attack. Silk has to attack the beast at the same time as Rain casts her spell. Yoke tells the girls to start and the final attack is in motion. They are able to push back the beast for a moment. It gives Yoke just enough time to pull off his finishing move. First, he summons an ice prison for the Zarnak demon beast. Then, by creating a special blast, he hits the beast with all types of damage types. This creates a giant blast that is very destructive and powerful. Yoke has been working on this special spell for a long time. Yoke is hopeful that this plan worked, but the beast, once more, seems totally unfazed, like it's not damaged at all. For a moment, everyone in the Clover party is frozen in fear. They are just watching the Zarnak beast and hoping that it's damaged. At first, the beast looks totally fine and Yoke starts to get worried. Suddenly, the beast starts to cry and scream in pain. Yoke realizes that it's very damaged and that the effects of his attack have started to damage it even more. He then orders Marina to pull off her finishing move. Marina jumps in the air and with all her mana, she creates a perfect sword attack. With this attack, she slashes the beast and cuts of its head with no problem. Yoke falls down to his knees. He is totally tired but really happy that his party members survived this battle. In that moment, Rain, Marina, and Silk all hug Yoke at the same time. The girls are very grateful that he helped them survive this fight. 2 days pass and the Clover party is now a bit famous. Their broadcasts are very popular and everyone knows that they are very strong since they took down a B-rank demon. Yoke does not like all this attention. For most of his life, he is used to being in the background, so this is strange for him. The girls, on the other hand, are super happy they were able to take down a powerful beast and finish that C-rank quest and get some cool rewards. Rain does seem to be upset by something. Since she is also a mage, she noticed that Yoke used a forbidden spell. He created a new spell, and that is against the law in this world. While they are all drinking, Yoke decides to admit to what he has done with his magic spell. Suddenly, a giant bearded man arrives and we learn that his main is Benwu. Benwu is the guild master and wants to talk with Yoke and his party members. Right away, Yoke is worried that he is in big trouble now and he hopes that his party members will not suffer the same fate as he will. Benwu takes Yoke and the Clover party to his office as they have something important to talk about. Yoke is nervous and he does not know what to say. Rain is also not saying anything as she does not want to get Yoke into more trouble. Benwu starts to praise the party for their work well done on their previous quests. Yoke is shocked by this and Benwu continues to praise them. He explains that while the Royal Academy of Magic has very strict laws about forbidden spells, it seems that Yoke did not break any of their laws. He created his own unQ spell that now only he is allowed to use. Benwu praises the group for taking down the powerful demon beast and for being able to complete their mission with no other major problems. Yoke is super happy since now he has a powerful spell he can use and also his group is not in trouble. Benwu then decides to give some awards to the Clover party. All the girls become rank C adventurers, which is a big deal for them. They are super happy about it. Yoke, on the other hand, finally becomes an A-rank adventurer. This is something he wanted for a long time, and even if he was part of an A-rank party, he never had that rare rank. Now Yoke realizes that he can acutely build something out of his adventures. Benwu tells the Clover party that he feels sorry for their troubles in this quest. The quest was only rank C, but they had to fight a B-rank demon. For that reason, their rewards will be greater. Benwu gives him a treasure chest filled with so much gold it makes their heads spin. The girls are losing their minds since they have never seen such a big reward. Benwu also gives them something called a Randall Platinum coin. It's a very rare and valuable item. Marina and Silp realize at that moment that they now have enough gold to build a house, something they wanted to do for a long time. Yoke is super happy for the girls and he tells them that he will support them in all their decisions no matter what. Silp blushes since Yoke is so nice to them. The group decides to plan for their new missions and have some fun to celebrate what they achieved. In the meantime, Benwu is worried about the monsters that have started to act very strangely. A B-rank demon beast being in that are something that should never happen. In the meantime, we see that Simon is totally losing his mind. He has started to drink all the time as his party has fallen apart. They have failed a lot of quests back to back and less people are watching their broadcasts. Simon is of course jealous of Yoke and his success with his Clover party. Simon starts to talk with another member of his party and they come up with a new idea. Maybe the best plan would be to invite Yoke back to their party. Simon at first is not for this plan, but soon he realizes that it might be the best idea. Yoke did all the hard work in the party, he lost all of his money, and he was the best support. If Simon invited him back on, he could help them achieve better results and more fame. The only thing that Simon needs to do is pay Yoke a bit more money, not much else. A very major reveal happens in this conversation. We find out that Simon and Yoke are actually childhood friends. Still, for some reason, Simon does not like his former friend and just wants to use him for his own selfish goals. Simon decides to find Yoke and invite him back to his party. Yoke and the girls continue their quests as usual. It has been a month since they have formed the Clover Party, and it's going great. While some quests have been hard, they were able to pass all the missions with their teamwork and friendship. In all this time, the girls have started to get stronger. Marina is now a better fighter with the sword, Silk has more control over her dark elf powers, and Rain is able to produce stronger magic attacks. All in all, the group is doing great, and the broadcasts are very popular as people all over the world want to see their fights with various monsters. In the present, we see the Clover Party fighting a giant demon hand. While their enemy is powerful, their attacks are much stronger. Together, they are able to take down the powerful demon and take another reward. They decide to take back the loot to the guild and get some good rewards. When they enter the guild tavern, Yo changes his expression. Suddenly, he gets angry and tells the girls to go and talk with the guild receptionist. It is revealed that Simon has arrived, and he tells Yoke that they need to talk about something. Simon has that wicked smile on his face, and it's obvious that he is planning something. Yoke does not seem to be in the mood for this conversation at all. He has changed a lot in the past month, so Simon might have trouble with his plan. Simon right away starts to make fun of Yoke for leading his new party. Yoke has no time for their pointless conversation, so he tells Simon that he is leaving. Yoke admits that he is tired from their most recent mission, so he does not have time for their conversation. Simon then stops Yoke to tell him about his great plan. Since Yoke has known Simon for many years, he is familiar with his great plans. Simon always has some grand plan, and Yoke has to clean up after his messes. Simon then screams at Yoke that he wants him back in the party. He tells Yoke that he will pay him more and he has to return since they have been losing quests and missions. Yoke is surprised, but he rejects the offer without thinking about it much. Yoke admits that while the money was a problem, that was not the main reason he left the party. He left the party because Simon is a horrible leader who always used him Yoke in the worst situation and did never help him out. Simon then starts to get really angry. He tells Yoke that the party has been losing members and nobody wants to replace what Yoke did. Of course, nobody is that stupid to be helping Simon all the time. Yoke then calls out Simon that in the past he always told him that he was useless, so he does not understand what changed. Yoke tells Simon that he has a new group and they share the same goals and dreams as himself. Yoke will never return to the party, and he tells Simon to leave him alone forever. Simon is now beyond angry, and he tells Barry, one of the last party members, that they are leaving. Simon is now determined to get revenge on Yoke and prove he can be a great leader without him. Marita and the other girl are worried that Yoke might leave their party. Yoke tells the girls that he will never leave their side no matter what. They are all happy and decide to drink to celebrate another great day of dungeon clearing. The Clover Party becomes even more famous. Now people all over the town know about them and they are quite the celebrities. Yoke is super happy that he finally has a great party and he is happy. Finally, the time arrives to buy a house that the Clover Party can use as their base of operations. Every major party of adventurers has their own base and they are very important. Yoke and the girls start to explore the town, hoping to find a great house for them. They arrive in a really nice wooden cabin that is cozy and nice. Yoke does not like it. He does not think it's safe enough for the girls. Since the other parties might attack them since they are girls, it has to be safer. Silk agrees, and they continue with their search. They end up in a new house that is built out of rock, and it seems much safer. Yoke and the girls are shocked when they enter since it's too huge. The man who was helping them with the purchase explains that the house was previously a family home, and that is why it's so big. Still, there is one more house for them to check out. Yoke is a bit nervous about this one since it's near the house where Simon and his former party members have their own base. Silk and Marina realize that Yoke would not feel happy living in this house, so they cancel that meeting. Silk tells Yoke that nobody will take him away. Finally, the Clover Party signs the papers and they purchase a new home base. Yoke is super happy and he comments that now he has to find a house for himself. The girls are shocked as they realize that Yoke does not plan to live in the same house as them. Yoke thinks he has to be a gentleman and leave the girls to live alone. The girls are shocked by this and they tell Yoke that he needs to live with them since they are all members of the party. Yoke accepts, but he comes up with a plan for everyone to have a lock on their doors. Yoke wants to respect the girls and their privacy. Finally, they move in and they start to put in furniture and their new items inside of the house. It takes some time, but finally they create the perfect home and base for their party. Now they will have a place they can return to after difficult missions and quests. Also with this base, they have more protection and privacy from the outside world, and they do not have to sleep in taverns. Yoke feels super happy. Not only does he have a new home, but he finally has a room to himself. Suddenly, while he is in bed, he hears someone knocking on his door. Rain arrives in his room and she sits on his bed. It seems that Rain has a request for Yoke, but she is shy to ask. The following day, it's revealed that Rain wanted Yoke to take her to the market. She is very excited about buying new mage items and she wanted to have fun the entire day. Still, this is the first time that Rain and Yoke have been alone. Yoke starts to realize that she is very cute and Rain is shy around him. They have a sudden romantic moment when they hold hands by accident. Rain is very shy around boys and Yoke is also not experienced in any romantic moments. Rain cannot believe that she and Yoke are holding hands. This is way too much for her as she is super shy. Yoke tells her that it's totally okay and that he likes holding hands and spending time with her. Yoke and Rain continue exploring the market and having fun. They see various crazy items, mages, and wonderful creatures in the market. Rain finally admits that she actually did not have to buy anything in the market, she just wanted to spend time with Yoke. Yoke then smiles and tells her that he likes spending time with her as well. On their way through the market, they talk about their missions and items. Finally, Rain stops Yoke to ask him a very important question. She is sad as she thinks the Clover Party is holding Yoke back. Yoke tells the girls about his dream of becoming the greatest adventurer ever, and Rain thinks that he should return to his former party to achieve that goal. Rain wants him to stay, but she understands that he wants to leave them and return to his A-rank party. Yoke tells Rain that he has found his family, and he does not want to leave them. They can all achieve their dreams together. Rain is very happy hearing that answer, and she smiles. Yoke notices that she has been acting very different lately. Usually she is very quiet and shy, but now she's getting more relaxed. Suddenly, a thief steals a woman's purse, and he runs past Yoke and Rain. Then they realize that he did not steal from an ordinary girl, he stole from a dangerous cat girl. The cat girl leaps through the crowd as she finds the thief. With no issues, she is able to capture him and beat him up. Yoke does not need to help her at all. Still in her chase, the cat girl ran into Rain and messed up her hair. We learn that the cat girl belongs to a race of creatures called Furcy. These Furcy are very dangerous and agile. Often they are really great adventurers, and it seems that this cat girl is also an adventurer. She feels sorry, so she decides to help fix up Rain's hair. At first, she thinks that Rain is Yoke's younger sister, but soon she starts to think that Rain and Yoke are actually dating. The cat girl makes Rain look very cute, and Yoke blushes. Yoke realizes that the Clover Party would have great benefits by teaming up with this cat girl. She could be a perfect scout for them on harder missions. The cat girl decides to leave, and Yoke is sure that they will meet again in the future. Yoke returns to the girls, and they all get ready for their new mission. Now the girls all have new and fancy gear, and Yoke is hyped about their new quest. They start their journey into a giant labyrinth dungeon where many dangers await them. Yoke and the Clover Party begin their new quest, and this time it's a bit different. They are actually being sponsored. In this world, certain gear companies sponsor their adventurers so that they can sell more gear. Yoke and his party are now wearing this new gear, and they have to pass a new mission with the gear on them while they broadcast to their viewers. All the girls are super hyped about their outfits. Yoke praises Marina for looking cute and fresh. He also tells Simp that she is perfect. Rain gets a slightly more boring comment and gets angry. She wants Yoke to praise her appearance like the other girls. Finally, they are ready to enter the dungeon, but Yoke tells the girls to be careful. He tells them a story about evil shadows in these dungeons, powerful monsters that can take down even the strongest knights. Marina especially totally freaks out, and the other girls jump on Yoke to hug him since they are so scared. Yoke at that moment reveals that he was just joking. For the last 10 years, this area has not had one single boss fight. It seems that powerful monsters are just not located there. The group starts to explore the ruins when suddenly a giant crash happens. They get scared as smoke covers the entire room. Suddenly, they spot a few orcs standing there, and they get ready for a crazy battle. Both Silk and Yoke are surprised that orcs are in this area, as that does not happen ever. Orcs are very dangerous monsters that appear all over the world. They are often in units and very rarely alone. Orcs have very military-based tactics in battle. Their battle skills are insane, they have no mercy, and they coordinate in battle like nobody else. Orcs steal, rob, and destroy anything that stands in their way. For them, all other creatures in this world are just food. Silk has a history with the orcs, as does her entire race. Dark elves have been at war with the orcs for a while. Orcs especially like to attack and destroy cities that belong to dark elves. For that reason, this battle is personal to Silk. The orcs charge at Clover Party, and Marina goes in hard with her sword. She is not able to hit a single orc as they jump over her with no problem. The orcs decided to target Silk first, and they go right after her. Still, the orcs are unlucky since Silk has been training and leveling up her skills. Orcs can be very strong with the right gear or low level. These orcs have no gear, so Silk is able to take them down in one hit. Watching her, Yoke feels very proud. She's become so strong in a short amount of time, and she is a great leader. Yoke thinks that she should lead the party and not him. Yoke and Silk joke after the fight is over. After the battle is over, they continue exploring the dungeon when suddenly they notice something scary in the background. They notice a figure made out of shadows watching them. This figure just looks at them and then leaves. Yoke is now really worried, as this type of creature has not been seen in many years. The group finds a scroll of revelations in a pouch one of the orcs had with him. Orcs usually go into dungeons and try to steal anything they can, and it seems they stole from this dungeon. This item can be used to give great power to another magical item. Yoke tells the group that they need to continue exploring, but he is worried. He does not want to scare the girls, but it's obvious that the monsters have started to act very strange. Yoke fears the worst, but does not want to think about it. Yoke and the girls continue exploring the dungeon when Yoke starts to think more about the shadow stalker that appeared in front of them. That creature has not been seen in 10 years, so this is a very bad sign. Also, it's clear that dark magic is being used, and that can be a big problem. Yoke warns the girls about dark magic and how dangerous it can get during battle. The girls are all careful, and Yoke leads them further into the dungeon. Suddenly, they spot the Shadow Stalker once more. It just looks at them for a moment, and it does not attack. Yoke realizes that something is wrong with Rain. She cannot talk. In that moment, Yoke figures out that the Shadow Stalker is using a dark magic attack without them seeing. He's already attacking, but the group did not notice. Suddenly, the attack passes on Yoke, and he is very injured. Now the girls are in a panic, and they realize that a battle is starting. A Shadow Stalker lands in front of them, and it seems he is summoning his own dark forces. The Clover Party gets ready for their hardest battle yet. It's very clear that this is not another mindless monster, but something much more dangerous. Yoke is very injured, not only that he is under the dark magic spell. He cannot fight or help the girls. This fight is their own. They decide to protect Yoke from further attacks as the Shadow starts to attack them. Silk orders Rain to protect Yoke from any further attacks. Rain places him in the corner of the room and puts a tree cage around him so that he is protected for the time being. The girls then start their fight with the Shadow Stalker, and it's clear this is a very dangerous enemy who is just having fun with them. No matter how strong the girls are, their attacks do no damage as the Shadow Stalker jumps around and laughs at them. He is fast beyond imagination, and he does not take any damage. Silk is getting frustrated in their fight, but she keeps charging up her attacks. Marina tries to attack the Shadow. Her attacks do no damage. Not only that, but the Shadow figure is able to slash her up with no problem. Silk tries to help Marina in the fight, and the girls realize that this is the fight of their lives. No other monster encounter was this difficult. While that is happening, Yoke wakes up in the past. He is back in the house of his aunt and uncle. Their names are Hines and Atina. They are very nice folks who are taking care of Yoke. Yoke is now a child, and he tries to talk with them, but suddenly outside it starts snowing. All three of them leave the cabin, and suddenly a man in armor lands with his giant griffin. We are introduced to Saga Ferdio. He is the adoptive father of Yoke, and he is the person who saved his life in the past. Saga and Yoke have a very interesting relationship. Yoke looks up to Saga and wants to be just like him. Saga talks with Hines and Atina, then enters the cabin to rest. Saga is often on various adventures, and he is rarely home, so Yoke does not get to spend much time with him. They sit down and talk. Yoke has big dreams about his life, and Saga tells him that he must become an adventurer. They talk about the wonders of the world and how many awesome things there are out there. Saga motivates Yoke to become an adventurer and find his own family, and that he builds a life with them. In the meantime, back in the real world, the girls are still fighting the Shadow Stalker. There is a lot of destruction in the dungeon as the girls try to take down the enemy. So far, it's been of no use since he is just too strong. Marina and Silk try to combine their attacks in the hopes of taking down this ultra-powerful monster. Silk is draining her mana fast, but she is not ready to give up just yet. Marina is also willing to go all the way to defeat the enemy. Ray, in the meantime, tries to attack the Shadow Stalker with ranged attacks while protecting Yoke and his sleeping body. The fight is now getting too brutal as the girls are desperate to do any damage before they get too badly injured. Silk decides to pull off one of her strongest moves. She summons a giant tornado while Rain creates even more trees that attack in the combined attack. This creates a pretty powerful combined attack that seems to slow down the Shadow Stalker. Marina sees this as a perfect chance to attack, so she moves past the tornado attack and finds her target. She leaps in the air, and with all her might she slashes the Shadow Stalker. The Shadow Stalker then counters with his own powerful attack that injures all the girls. Marina is not ready to give up, so she goes for another slash, and this time she thinks she may have done some damage. Still, it does not damage. The Shadow Stalker just stands there smiling and then suddenly vanishes into thin air. For a moment, the girls have no idea what is happening. Suddenly, Marina slashes half of her armor is torn apart. The Shadow Stalker is now attacking even faster than before. With Marina badly injured, Silk and Rain are too tired to continue fighting this way. It seems that these latest attacks pissed off the Shadow Stalker, and it decides to attack the girls with his full power. It starts to create an attack called the Shadow Cannons, and Silk realizes that this is the first time they might not survive this fight. The Shadow Cannon attack begins, and everything starts to blow up in the dungeon. Silk realizes that Marina will get hit directly, so she jumps in to protect her friend. Silk is hit in the back with a powerful dark blast, and she now falls to the ground. Marina is scared and worried as she is not sure if Silk is even alive. Rain tries to protect the girls, but she then gets slashed without any mercy. Marina is now on the ground and bleeding everywhere. It seems that the battle is over. We once return to Yoke in his dream reality. He talks with his adoptive father, and this is where the truth comes out. Yoke realizes that he is in a dream. He has been trapped by the Shadow Stalker, and his friends are back in the real world dying in battle. Yoke realizes that he has to find a way out of this realm before it's too late. He has to save his party. Back in the real world, Marina is crawling on the ground, totally helpless. Rain is still alive, but barely. The Shadow Stalker now gets ready to finish off the girls. Suddenly, Silk stands up and starts to power up. It seems that she is not quite done with this battle, and she has one more attack to pull off. Silk starts to charge up, and Marina realizes that she is summoning her true dark elf powers. Silk's eyes start to glow like diamonds, and she gets ready for an attack. She attacks while screaming at the Shadow Stalker to stay away from her friends. Now Silk is able to use an even more powerful attack on the Shadow Monster. Marina realizes that she has a chance to help her friend, so she stands up one final time and attacks. Both of the girls start to slash at the monster with their attacks. While the Shadow Stalker finally gets damaged, it's not done yet. Silk can only focus on her insane powers for a short amount of time. Marina loses focus while attacking and realizes that she is now in real danger. The Shadow Stalker goes in to attack, but suddenly a trap spell activates. We see that Yoke is finally awake and he is ready to fight. He yells at the Shadow Stalker to never touch his friends again. The Yoke then powers up his spell. The room is filled with vibrant colors as Yoke combines various spell attacks, and they all crash into the Shadow Stalker at the same time. Yoke is not holding back anything, and he just keeps casting spells that attack the Shadow Stalker all at once. Yoke is able to really damage the Shadow Stalker. The Shadow Monster needs some time to recover, but it still has mana to attack. Yoke starts to tell the girls that he is so sorry. He feels bad that he was asleep while they got hurt. Silk tells him that it's all okay, but they need to finish the fight. Yoke decides that they all need to combine their attacks. Rain, Marina, and Silk combine their most powerful attacks with Yoke and his magic spells. With the combined attack of the entire Clover Party, they create a giant explosion and destroy the Shadow Stalker once and for all. The battle is finally over, and the group is able to stick together and survive through the entire battle. Yoke hugs all three of the girls and tells them that he loves them. The girl blushes. This was an insane thing he just said. Yoke then remembers why he became an adventurer. To find a family and to live happily with them and go on crazy adventures. Now he finally has that, so he is super happy. With the Shadow Stalker defeated, the party is able to finally finish this quest. With the battle finally behind them, the group returns to the town. They are all glad to be alive and together. This whole experience has brought them closer together, and now they are even better friends. When they arrive in town, they return to the guild master to talk with him. There is another giant meeting held, and some of the most important people in the kingdoms arrive to talk with Yoke and his party. It seems that there is something very important they must discuss. The live broadcast that Yoke did was super popular, with many people seeing it. It also served as a warning to other guilds about this part of the dungeon and about the Shadow Stalker. Basically, the Clover Party show the entire world how dangerous some of these monsters are and that they are changing their behaviors. They all praise the party and promise great rewards for them. Still, Yoke wants to inform the leader of something important. It is his opinion, but he wants to share it. The leaders are very interested, so Yoke explains. He thinks that the Shadow Stalker is also summoning other monsters and that his plans are far from over. Yoke also thinks that a monster stampede event could be caused. This is the worst-case scenario with monsters, and it's something all nations and adventurers fear. Everyone is shocked by Yoke's bold statement, but he goes on to explain why he thinks this might happen. Strange monsters have been showing up in places where they should not. Since the girls are pretty new to this, they don't know what a monster stampede really is. Yoke reveals that when suddenly monsters show up in a single region, they keep showing up until there are too many of them. Then all the monsters join in a giant attack and just crush everything in front of them. This happened to Yoke in his own home. He used to live in a pretty big village and there was peace. Then a monster stampede happened and his entire village was ruined. Nothing was left but dust and destruction. Yoke thinks that this might be happening. The leaders of the guild also agree, as it seems the Shadow Stalker had bigger plans than just that one simple attack. The girls also find out in this meeting who Yoke's father is, and they are shocked since his adoptive father is very legendary in all the land. Yoke promises the leaders that he will get stronger and help in any situation if the monster attacks become worse, and the girls also decide to help out. The Clover Party will continue getting stronger. When Yoke and his group leave, we see that the leaders are very impressed with Yoke, and they think he will also become a legendary figure in the adventurer world. A month passes and Yoke and his party continue having great adventures. They now live in their base and often they take pretty hard quests. Yoke has been working in the lab for days now. He is always creating better items and potions for their dungeons. The girls are angry at him since he has not taken a break, and they decide to force him into resting. Silk especially thinks that Yoke has been pushing himself way too hard this past month. This whole situation turns into a comedy as all three girls force Yoke into bed and they join him. Since he is so focused on work, they want to keep him in bed. For anyone, this would be heaven, but for Yoke, it's awkward, since he always tries to be super distant from the girls in terms of romance. The girls slowly start to fall asleep and Yoke is losing his mind. Marina is holding his hand tightly. Rain is looking at him all cute-like, and Silk is holding him as well. As all the girls slowly fall asleep, Silk talks with Yoke and tells him to rest. Yoke then admits to Silp that the next time the girls jump all over, he does not know if he will be able to control himself. Silp blushes as she knows what that means. While the Clover Party is loving life, we meet up with Simon and his party. Let's just say that they had better times. Instead of living in a nice house, the party is now living in some small space that barely looks like a cabin. They have no money and most of the party has left. Simon is just growing more insane as time goes on. Now he has started to target and harass Jamie. She is a healer of the group, and Simon thinks she is the problem with everything. The other two members of the party have also started to blame Jamie for everything. Basically, she is the new Yoke. They want her to do everything, and when something goes wrong, she is the reason their mission fails. Simon screams at Jamie to get ready for the next mission since it's ranked B. Jamie tells him that maybe they should be careful and examine the dangers and the rank of the mission. Simon shames her and tells her that there is no need, they are A-ranked, and this will be no problem for them. Days go by and Simon and his party return to the guild. They are totally beat up, and they have failed another mission. The guild administration tells Simon that if they keep failing, they will lose their rank very soon. Simon starts to panic even harder and once again thinks that Yoke ruined everything for him. He hears over the news that the Clover Party is having a giant event and people are hyped for them. Simon starts to steam out of his ears from the rage. Yoke is living the life he should have. Simon decides that he has to get some sort of revenge and he thinks there's a perfect plan for it. He will force Yoke to join his party even if it's on a very insane mission. A few weeks pass by and Yoke gets a strange letter from Simon himself. In this letter, it's explained that Yoke is invited to an endless darkness quest with Simon. Since it's illegal to invite a member of another party to your party, Simon used a special quest to do the same thing. Yoke rejects this offer right away. He does not care about the Endless Darkness mission and he does not want to work with Simon. Yoke goes to talk with the guild administration to formally reject the offer when Simon arrives totally insane. He starts to scream at Yoke and insult him. Simon wants Yoke to go on this mission no matter what. Yoke tells him that he won't and that Simon should really leave him alone. Yoke then just starts insulting Simon and his leadership skills, basically telling Simon that he's a horrible person to lead a party and that he blames everyone else for his own mistakes. This pisses off Simon so much that he is ready to throw hands. Still, Yoke keeps going with the insults and basically embarrasses Simon in front of everyone. Yoke and his girls leave while Simon is left angrier than ever. A few days after Yoke and his party are called to a special meeting by the guild officers. Yoke is worried that this might be connected to his rejection of the Endless Darkness quests, since it seems pretty important. When they enter the guild office, they are met by Betty Bow, the great leader of many kingdoms. Betty tells Yoke to sit down as they have something important to discuss. Yoke now realizes that he might be in big trouble if Bow is here to talk with him. Betty Bow then gives Yoka and the girls a scroll of exit, a very powerful and very rare item. This item allows anyone to escape the dungeon and save their entire party from danger. It's a very useful item that can help save lives in the most dire situations. Betty then tells Yoke that he needs to join the Endless Darkness quest. Betty has sent already a few teams, but they were unable to find any new information. This quest is very important since it might lead to the discovery of what is causing the monsters to act like they are. Betty needs someone he can trust and the Clover Party is the perfect unit for the job. Yoke feels very insecure about the entire situation and he admits that he does not know if he can protect his girls in this area. Betty then tells Yoke that he has been watching him for quite some time and he is the perfect leader and protector. Since his father is now gone, he is the perfect person to save this world. Yoke becomes emotional and his girls support him fully. Yoke then finally accepts the Endless Darkness mission. Now there are some official matters that have to be done in preparation for this quest. First, everyone in Clover Party is super hyped since this quest is for A rank only, which means they will see a lot of crazy items and rare collectibles on the mission. Yoke learns from the guild master that Simon's party tried to get in this quest, but since they did such a horrible job, they will lose not one but many ranks. Yoke feels bad since he warned Simon so many times. Still, he cannot think about that he wants to get all their items and gear ready for the mission. Also, Yoke thinks that before the mission starts, they have to recruit a new member of their party. The guild administrator has a few ideas, but Yoke already has a perfect person that would fit in with his party. The following day, they all meet to wait for this new recruit. Suddenly, a giant savage arrives, and the girls think that he is the new member. He starts to be aggressive with them when suddenly he is knocked out by the cat girl. We finally learn that her name is Neen and Yoke wants her to join the Clover Party. Neen is very skilled in many fighting styles and she has precise scouting skills. Still, she wants to find out if she vibes with the Clover Party. She has been a temporary member of other parties and it did not work out really great. Neen is super hyped and she comes up with an idea for them to do a test dungeon just to see their chemistry as a team. Yoke and the girls agree and they travel to the starting dungeon in the mines where they have a fight with a crab that Yoke destroyed by accident. Neen leads the group inside of the mines and this is where they learn about her secret powers. Neen can use vibrations to find her way, which makes her a very useful party member. Finally, they arrive at the crab monster and Neen just goes crazy. She has insane ninja powers as well, and with the other girls in Yoke, they are able to fight the crab monster with no problems. They are soon attacked by more monsters, but these creatures stand no chance against Clover Party. With Neen on the team, they are just going through the monsters with no issues at all. Also, Silk, Rain, and Marina are now much stronger, so the entire party works so much better. After the fight is over, Yoke once more invites Neen to join their party. She would be a perfect fit. The girls also like her, so it works great. Neen wants to accept, but she feels a bit insecure. She has been a temporary member of many parties, and they always hated her. Neen would focus too much on saving people or helping, so her teammates made fun of her or told her that she slows them down. Yoke tells Neen that this will not happen with the Clover Party, and they all have the same style as her. Neen is super happy, and she accepts the invitation to join the party. Yoke then realizes that the best thing would be if Neen moved in with them in their house, since she is now a member of the party. A few hours after that, the group goes to the guild officers to make Neen an official member of the Clover Party. Soon after, she takes all their things and officially moves into the house. They throw her a giant welcoming party, which makes Neen emotional since they are so kind. Yoke is once more a gentleman and asks her if there is a problem with him being in the same house as the girls. Neen does not care about that at all. She is here to just have fun. Everyone parties and they have a giant dinner. The girls get into a friendly competition about Yoke and who he loves the most. After that, when they are all taking a bath together, the girls basically all admit that they are in love with Yoke. Neen, on the other hand, is still new, so she is not that interested in Yoke. Moments later, Neen is getting ready for bed and slips. Yoke is there to save her, and they share a romantic moment. Later, Neen goes to the girls and also admits that she has a giant crush on Yoke. Dude is not even trying, and he has 4 girls madly in love with him. A few more days pass, and the group is getting ready for the Endless Darkness mission. Yoke wants everything to be perfect and that his group returns safe and sound. The girls are all hyped about the mission, and they cannot wait to get started. Neen is especially happy since this is her first real adventure with her new party. Yoke and the girls recap all the parties that are joining them on the mission. All of them are some of the most popular and strong adventurers in the world. They are all famous and pretty badass. Still, the Clover Party is ready to stand out and show their real power. The day arrives and it's finally time to enter the darkness. Yoke and his party are all excited as they travel to the main office of the guild. There they are transported into the Endless Darkness. They see a giant tower and many buildings around it. There is darkness all around the place and it has a very evil vibe. Soon they are joined by the other parties that are going on the same mission. They all look super badass and ready for anything. The Clover Party prepares as well, and they follow the other parties. Yoke is excited to finally start his journey. This is what he always wanted to do. The Clover Party enters the dungeon of the Endless Darkness. Yoke orders Neen to go ahead and explore. Since Neen is a scout, she is super fast, and her vibrational powers give her great detective skills to see what is up ahead. Yoke and the other girls stand around and explore the entry point of the dungeon. It is said that the Endless Darkness is the most insane dungeon since it can change at random. Just whole parts of the dungeon shift and change forms, and also there are very dangerous monsters in this location. Yoke explains the mission once more. They are here to explore and find out what is causing the monsters to act so weird and aggressive. Neen finally returns and gives her report. She tells the group that just moments after she left, the dungeon started to shift and change. It was insane and her heart started to pound like crazy. Neen explains that it will be very dangerous and they have to be careful moving ahead. The stairs to the upper levels are already destroyed, so they have to go through a giant gate. When they enter the gate, they are amazed. While the Endless Darkness dungeon is very scary, it is also beautiful. Silk comments that there are stars all around them and that it's a very interesting place. Suddenly, they see a giant monster up ahead. It's a monster that they have never seen before. A very unique type of creature, an armored giant. Taking a closer look, the Clover Party realizes that this monster is not just a regular giant in armor. It has the head of a hammerhead shark, and it looks like a beast as well. It is also a B-ranked monster, which is a pretty powerful foe. Still, Yoke feels confident, and he tells the girls that they will not avoid this creature but fight it head-on. This creature might be part of the Endless Darkness, and they might learn more about what is happening to the other monsters in this region and in other kingdoms. They have to fight it too, also test their powers. Yoke is confident that they can take it down, which surprises the girls. Now it's time for the plan of attack. First, Neen goes and starts to attack the monster and jumps all around it. This causes the creature to lose control and start attacking. Marina and Silk then pull out their new weapons. Silk has a powerful bow and arrow that causes electric damage. Marina, on the other hand, has a giant crossbow that hits like a cannon. Rain starts to summon her spells, and they all attack at the same time. The monster starts to get weak, but its armor is thick and powerful. Yoke now reveals his ultimate weapon, Marina, but with some insane upgrades. We see a flashback to a few days ago. Marina and Yoke got together while planning the Endless Darkness mission. Yoke then gave her something very important, a magical script that she could use in battle. While it may seem like an ordinary piece of paper, this scroll is actually super powerful. It gives the user an insane power boost and upgrades their skills to another level. Marina is shocked that Yoke is giving this to her, but he explains that her powers being upgraded will help the party the most. Marina accepts the scroll and activates the magic. Suddenly, a giant light appears as the scroll downloaded Marina's powers and skills. It then started to update it. Now back in the present, Yoke tells Marina to finish off the wounded beast. Marina then activates her powers and surprises everyone. She now can use the power of a lethal samurai as her sword slashes are even more powerful. All the girls are amazed and proud of Marina as she leaps into action. She goes in and takes down the giant hammerhead monster with no problem. The Clover Party has defeated their first monster in the endless darkness. Soon after, they find a treasure chest and open it with great expectations. When they open it, they are kind of surprised and confused. While there is some treasures inside, there is not much. The main item that is inside of the treasure box is a black cube of some sort. Yoke and the girls have no idea what this item is or what they can use it for. Yoke has no idea what this strange black cube is. He had never seen anything like it before in his time doing alchemy or magic. Still, Yoke admits that it feels strange, like it has some sort of energy. The girls are scared by it, but they decide to take it with them. Yoke also gives a ring to Rain. She blushes and imagines that he is asking her to marry him. What Yoke is actually giving her is a sanity ring. It's a special magic item that helps the user calm down and remain cool in tense situations. The group journey further into the dungeon, but they take a short break. The girls are sweaty and dirty and want to clean themselves. Yoke looks away while they wash up. He thinks about the plan moving forward. It seems that something odd is happening in this region, and it is causing the monsters to act weird. He still has no idea what is behind all of it, but Yoke knows they have to continue searching. Marina teases him since he is so tense, and she even jumps on him with her bare chest. Yoke starts to bleed from his nose from all the excitement, but he is able to calm the girls down. They continue their journey, and soon they are met by Simon and his party. It seems that Simon did arrive in this location, and of course he starts to cause problems for Clover Party right away. Yoke does not want to start a fight, so he tries to just move along. Simon stops Yoke and orders him to give him his broadcast equipment and also his gear. Simon starts to be horrible right from the start. He insults Yoke and threatens him multiple times. He also makes fun of his party. Simon and his group start to harass the entire party. They especially harass the girls. Simon says something horrible to Silk. Since she is a dark elf, he starts to insult her especially and calls her kind uncivilized. Yoke is now super pissed off and basically it's a whole incident. Soon after that, Simon and his group are brought back to the guild since they are reported for their action. I guess when you play stupid games, you get stupid rewards. Simon and his party are invited to a meeting with the guild master, and the vibe is very scary. Even Simon, who is always confident, is now scared. Still, he plans to just deny everything and act like they did nothing. The guild master right away starts to talk about what Simon and his party did. They have all of their horrible actions recorded, and they broke several laws, attacking another party, trying to take their gear, and also the horrible insults they said to Silk. Simon tries to defend himself by pretending it's not that big of a deal. He thinks that his insults were tame and justified. This pisses off the guild master even more and slaps Simon so hard his head almost flies off his shoulders. Simon is now in panic mode, but he tries to reason with the guild master. The guild master does not hear anything, he just keeps hitting Simon. He then goes on to explain to Simon that his horrible insults can put the entire kingdom in danger if the Dark Elves get offended. He also tells Simon that his party will probably lose all their ranks and might get banished from the kingdom altogether. Now the other members of the party start to freak out as this seems too much of a punishment. Still, they might have a chance, but they will not get sponsors, nor will anyone join their party. Simon and his idiots return to the tavern as they now realize how dire their situation really is. Simon is especially shocked about all of this, and he starts to think that maybe his career is over. Then suddenly, the creepy Vegio Sulak appears. He offers Simon and his party a special deal. Vegio will sponsor them, but of course, we know that Vegio wants the girls from the Clover Party. Some days pass, and Yoke and his Clover Party take a rest from the Endless Darkness exploration mission. They already went through a lot with the monsters and Simon harassing them. While Yoke and Marina sit down for some breakfast, they see a news report on the television. It seems that Simon, his party, and another party are out of the mission since they have been accused of horrible actions towards Clover Party. They will be investigated, and who knows what will happen to their rank. Yoke is pretty nervous about the entire situation as he hates getting so much attention. Still, he and Marina talk about their mission and what they have found so far. In their exploration, the most important item that they have found is most definitely the mysterious cube. The Alchemy Association and other mages tried to look at the cube, but its origin is unknown. There is speculation that its previous form was just pure mana and pure energy. Yoke still does not know how the item works, but he wants to find out. He has been trying to figure out how to activate it. While Yoke examines the cube, Marina gets closer to him. They have a romantic hug as Marina is truly in love with Yoke. Yoke does not understand his feelings for Marina, but he knows that he likes her. She is brave, loyal, and a fantastic warrior. She is also a great friend and partner. As they hug, suddenly the cube starts to pulsate with energy. Yoke realizes that something has activated the cube. Suddenly, he starts to focus on the cube and on Marina. The cube starts to change shapes. It's like a liquid. Soon enough, it forms a new weapon that is designed especially for Marina. Now Yoke realizes that this cube is basically raw power and can be used to create new items for his party. This will be something he will use in the future for sure. The following day, Clover Party continues their exploration of the endless darkness. Now they are on level 2, and this time the environment is very different. There are clear skies and fields all around them. The following day, their exploration does not result in anything major. They find some items, but they do not get attacked by monsters, and the tower in the middle of the dungeon does not have a lot of anything special. Still, Yoke feels very uneasy about the whole thing. This dungeon level feels very strange to him. It's just clear skills and endless hills. Yoke then realizes that while Main has special vibrational sonars, she cannot see very far. For that, they can use Rain. Rain has something called telescopic eyes. Basically, if she focuses, her vision turns into a telescope and she can see very far in the distance. Yoke picks up Rain and puts her on his back. She is very shy about the whole situation since he is touching her legs by accident while lifting her up. Rain finally focuses and activates her special eyes. She scans the entire dungeon and she concludes that there is basically nothing here. There is just endless fields, no enemies, and no items. Still, there is one curious thing. In the middle of the field, Rain notices a small cabin. Yoke is very interested, so the entire Clover Party travels to the isolated cabin. Soon enough, they arrive and knock on the doors. What Yoke sees next shocks him. An old sweet lady comes out of the cabin. She is very old and nice, and she starts to talk with Yoke and his gang. This should be a nice moment, but Yoke is upset. He does not understand what is happening. He asks the old grandma what she's doing in a dungeon. Yoke is confused since he has never seen a normal person just chilling and living inside of a dungeon. He asks the grandmother once more, but she does not give him a clear answer. She just tells the Clover Party to come inside since it's getting dark. Suddenly, everyone realizes that the sky went from blue to pitch black in just mere seconds. Yoke is then faced with the real form of the old lady. She is not old anymore, but she seems ancient. Now this creature takes the form of a super attractive woman in weird armor. She steps up towards Yoke and invites him inside. Suddenly, her house transforms from a cute little cabin into a giant castle that looks demonic. In just a few moments, the entire dungeon shifts from cute green fields into a desolate mortar-style dungeon. Yoke realizes that he and his girls are in real danger now. The land of the dungeon continues to shift and fall apart. The ground under their feet starts to shake, and the clouds part as lightning strikes appear all over the place. The monstrous lady that has started this chain reaction for some reason starts to become younger, and in that moment, Yoke realizes what this place is and who she is. Her castle grows bigger, and she turns into a literal child. In that moment, Yoke realizes that this is the underworld, and she is the immortal queen, Lady Persephone. She is the queen of the dead, and basically is the stuff of legends. Yoke is shocked by this, as someone like her should not be real. Persephone starts to laugh like a totally crazy person as she enjoys tormenting the party. She summons a giant tree and captures all the girls. They cannot fight back and they are stuck. Yoke is able to fight the queen's illusions and he creates a magic barrier for a moment. Persephone laughs at him once more but praises his strength. Yoke in that moment realizes that he has to use different methods in this situation. If he does not, his entire party is dead. Yoke remembers his adoptive father. We learn that this legendary warrior was actually Yoke's uncle who took him in after Yoke lost his parents. They used to share stories and talk all the time when Yoke was just a child. They actually talked about the Death Queen and her legendary stories. In one of the stories, a knight lost his love and he wanted to be reunited with her. He traveled far, far all the way to the underworld. He then made a deal with the Queen of Death. Basically, he gave up his own soul to save his lover. This is the only deal he could create. Yoke learned through this story that death is something that can happen to everyone and it's a harsh reality of this adventurer's life. Now in the present, Yoke knows what he must do to save his Clover Party. He decides to make a deal with the Queen of Death. This surprises even her as she did not expect this type of reaction. Yoke makes a deal with the Queen of Death. He will give up his soul if he can save his girls in the present. The girls all start to scream. They do not want him to make this type of sacrifice. Rain especially begs Yoke to not go through with the deal. In that moment, Yoke tells the girls that he just wants to have a good life with them. That is the only thing that matters. After he dies, he does not care about his soul. The Queen of Death laughs and accepts his offer. She kisses his neck and creates a scar that is her symbol. Now after Yoke dies, he will be her slave in the underworld. Suddenly, the entire dungeon starts to change and the Queen of Death leaves, but not before giving them a final warning. She reveals that a new kind of monster is coming to their kingdoms. These monsters are not in her control, and they are far above anything they have faced. They travel during the night, and they will erase humanity very soon. The Queen of Death laughs as she is certain that she and Yoke will meet very soon. Suddenly, the giant beasts of the night appear. These are those monsters that will end humanity. In that moment, Yoke realizes that they have to run. There is no way they can fight these monsters. These monsters should not even exist. Their powers are that insane. Yoke tells his Clover party to run as fast as they can and not to look back. The giant monsters charge at them, and it's a race for their lives. Yoke starts to feel his body growing weaker and slower. He has been drained, and he does not have a lot of power left inside of him. Still, he has to keep the monsters from capturing his girls. Yoke then, in a desperate move to save his friends, starts to pull out all his magic attacks. While he runs, he just keeps using up all his mana and throwing magic attacks at the giant beasts of the night. These attacks just slow down the monsters as Yoke goes all out. He is really trying his best. Suddenly, Yoke stops as he feels a different force around him. All the girls also stop as they realize that the beasts of night are using dark magic. This should not be possible. In that moment, Yoke is faced with his death, and he feels that his life is about to end. The giant monster prepares for one final attack using dark magic. Yoke is frozen in fear, but his girls save him. Neem picks him up and manages to help him dodge the attack from the monster. Silk orders the other girls to help Yoke and to run as fast as possible since the exit is nearby. The Clover party runs, the giant monsters right behind them. Yoke realizes that his legs are so heavy. He can barely see, and his life force is totally drained. Using so much mana has caused his body to slowly crash like an old engine. He can no longer run, and also the giant evil monster is still using dark magic to attack him. Yoke falls to the ground. He is now a lifeless body, and he cannot move any longer. His girls pick him up and jump through the gate in the last possible second. They make it just in time, and the giant monster goes away. They are now safe outside of the dungeon, but Yoke is not in good shape at all. He tells the girls that he cannot see and move his body. Yoke still has the scar that the Queen of Death gave him, and he is really weak. Still, he has enough strength to hug all the girls and tell them he is sorry. He feels like he let them down. He sensed that the cabin in the middle of the field was a trap, but he did not act fast enough. Yoke feels like he put all the girls in real danger, and they almost die because of him. Of course, none of the girls blame him, and they hug him. Marina is in tears as she feels his pain, and she just wants Yoke to be okay. Finally, Rain decides to get involved, and she realizes that Yoke is barely alive. Rain comes closer, and she kisses him. In that moment, she gives him her life force with that magical kiss. Yoke feels like his body is activating once more. After the kiss, Rain tells Yoke that she will get his soul back no matter what. Silk decides to also kiss Yoke to restore his life force even more. Yoke is beyond shocked at this point, but he is not complaining. This is the best healing session ever. Silk kisses Yoke with a lot of passion, and after their kiss is over, she explains that while she did heal him, she also wanted to make this promise. She does not want to just be a party member with Yoke. She wants to be his family. So do the other girls. Suddenly, Marina jumps on Yoke and starts telling him how she will save his soul as well. She promises to get super strong so she can take down the Queen of Death and her monsters. Then after her speech, Marina kisses Yoke. After their kissing is over, Neem wants to also make out with Yoke to fully seal the deal. This went from a healing session to a make-out session really fast. Neen and Yoke kiss, and now they are all in one big relationship. Since they have been through a lot, they decide to sleep and get some rest. Suddenly, Yoke is woken up in the middle of the night. He is met by Barry, who is smiling at him and Simon. Yoke is then hit full force by Simon. It is revealed that Simon has brought back his party into the dungeon to capture Yoke. Simon is now wearing a new black armor, and it's obvious that he is working for that creepy rich guy who wants the girls. Simon starts to heat Yoke once more and then tells him what will happen. The girls all have a magical device on them, the rope that makes them slaves. Basically, the user can activate that rope and make the person affected do whatever they want. Simon plans for the other girls to murder Silk. It's very obvious that Simon hates dark elves and is just a horrible person. Yoke can save the girls if he just signs a piece of paper. This paper is a contract for the Clover Party. Basically, if he signs this, Yoke admits that Simon is the new leader of the Clover Party and the girls will be with him in his group. At first, Yoke is against this. He does not want to put the girls in that much danger and give up on them. Yoke notices that Jamie, a member of Simon's crew, is not really up for this. It's very clear that Jamie does not want to be this cruel and horrible to others. Still, she has to follow orders since Simon scares her. Simon then once again tells Yoke that his girls are dead if he does not sign his papers. In that moment, Yoke feels totally powerless, and he decides to sign the papers to save his girls. He does not want them to get tortured, and this is his only option. Yoke feels sad. He knows that after he signs these papers, the Clover Party is over forever. Still, he wants to save his family, so he starts to slowly write his name. Yoke realizes that Simon did not use the rope of slavery on him since he had to get the real signature. Suddenly, the dungeon starts to crumble. Yoke has no idea what's happening, but it seems that everything is falling apart. Simon and a couple of the members of his dungeon start to fall down the second level. They are able to hold on to a ledge, but they cannot hold forever. Jamie is the mage in the group, and she can use her spell to bring them back up. Yoke realizes that since the monster stampedes are happening more often, this must be one of those moments. The dungeon is losing control as everything breaks. Suddenly, the ground beneath Yoke and the Clover Party girls starts to fall apart as well. Yoke has his hands tied. He cannot save his family. Suddenly, Jamie activates her spell and saves the Clover Party instead of her own party. Simon and his group are shocked as they fall down and hit the ground. They are now barely alive and are shocked by Jamie not saving them. Yoke is also surprised that Jamie helped him instead of Simon. In that moment, Yoke realizes that now they are on the level below of the dungeon, and he sees a giant tribe of orcs. This entire dungeon level is an orc tribe, and there is countless of them. Also, it seems that unlike those orcs before, these ones are a lot stronger. Yoke is barely standing. He has used a lot of his mana, and the girls are just recovering. He hugs them to just make sure that they are okay. They all plan to attack as fast as possible, but there is no way they can fight all of these orcs on their own. Simon, on the other hand, is on the ground, his back broken, and he basically cannot move at all. Jamie and Yoke talk, and Yoke thanks her for saving his party. Jamie and Yoke then team up since the orcs are preparing for their attack. The orcs fire off countless arrows, but Jamie and Yoke create a giant shield. This shield takes the arrows and fires them back at the orcs. Yoke is satisfied until he spots the Orc King. Now things are getting very real. The Orc King is a giant. He has an insane helmet on his head, and his power is very, very high. He walks slowly toward Yoke and his friends while the other orcs attack for no reason. Yoke realizes that he can use some black magic because of the scar and the Queen of Death gave him. Still, it's not enough. He is too tired, and he does not have any mana left. Yoke still stands proud as he prepares to fight the Orc King. He tries to summon all of his magic powers for one final attack, but soon realizes that the Orc King is just too fast and powerful. Before Yoke can even pull out a move, the Orc King is already jumping and going straight towards his head at insane speeds. Suddenly, Marina arrives and saves Yoke in the last second. The other girls also arrive and join with Jamie. They are ready for a fight. Yoke feels much better now that the girls are by his side, and he gets ready for the fight with the Orc tribe. Simon is on the ground, and he is looking at Yoke fighting the Orc tribe. Yoke is powered up, and with the help of his party, he is going all out in this fight. He truly is a hero, and Simon starts to lose his mind. He thinks that he should be the hero. In the past, Simon always considered himself the main character. He was the hero who everyone loved. Now the tables have turned. He's just a loser on the ground while Yoke is the hero of this story. In that moment, Simon's brain totally breaks and he decides to be the villain of this story. He grabs a knife and attacks Rain. He has totally lost his mind, and even in the middle of the battle with orcs, he is trying to ruin Yoke and his party. Jamie leaps into battle and tries to knock out Simon. Simon gets even more mad and hits Jamie with a powerful attack. She is now on the ground and drained of energy. Yoke then realizes that there are too many orcs in this area and they have to run away. He plans to use a spell to get everyone away. Simon also wants to escape, but Jamie does not let him. She traps him with a spell that slams him into the ground. Jamie tells Simon that he will no longer torture Yoke and his friends. Yoke tells Jamie to come with them, but she stays behind to stop Simon. Suddenly, a giant blast of light transports Yoke and his Clover Party out of that place. Simon is now crying like a baby. He realizes that the end is very near. He sees that there are orcs all around him. The orcs start to slaughter his party members. Barry, the once giant warrior who could take down several monsters at once, is now getting torn into pieces by the orcs. The orcs are eating his head and his legs. The orcs also attack the other party members and just totally destroy them. Simon is then slammed around by the orcs like a doll. He has no choice but to suffer his horrible fate. In the meantime, Jamie is hiding behind a rock. She wants to escape and live a better life. She feels so bad that she did not help Yoke while he was still part of the party. She always liked him but was too scared of Simon to do anything. Now Jamie just hopes she can survive this orc tribe and reunite with Yoke and his girls. Jamie searches for a way out of this dungeon as she sees her former party members getting eaten alive. 3 days go by and we learn that Yoke has been sleeping the entire time. He used the script of exit at the last possible moment to get himself and the girls out of that situation with the orcs, but it's obvious he used a lot of his powers. Finally, he wakes up and the girls all start to hug him. They are so happy he is okay. They explain to him that Jamie was left behind and that his search party could not find her at all. Yoke is happy that he and his girls are okay, but still he feels sorry for Jamie. He would have liked to save her. Soon after, they find a letter that Jamie gave to Yoke during the battle. In the letter, she explains how sorry she is and how sad she feels about her life. It's basically a goodbye letter. Still, they uncover a lot of information about Simon and how horrible he was. They find out that Vegio Salek was behind their attack and that he is a very rich person in this community. Rain still has the collar of slavery nearby as she was one of the main targets. Yoke realizes that Vegio wants to capture the girls and have them as their personal slaves. He hired Simon since he was the only one evil enough to finish this mission. Yoke and the girls decide that a horrible person like Vigio does not deserve to live a normal and happy life, so they set a trap for him. Yoke and the girls leave Rain alone in the house. She is wearing the collar of slavery and she is left alone. We see that Vigio has been spying on the house and he plans to now attack Rain while she is totally alone and without anyone to help her. This Vigio guy is somehow an even bigger monster than Simon was. Some minutes pass and Vigio finally decides to make his move. He goes inside of the house and starts to screen for Rain. This has been his goal the entire time. He wants the girl all for himself and Rain is the perfect start. He goes around the house like a literal monster and soon he finds Rain. He tries to assault her, but she smashes his head with a vase that has flowers in it. Soon Vigio orders his guards to capture Rain, but Yoke activates his trap. Yoke and the rest of the girls arrive and attack Vigio and his guards. This has been their trap all along. Yoke now tells Vigio that the guild masters are coming and his life is now over. Rain tells Vigio that he is nothing and then she kisses Yoke. This breaks Vigio in his mind. Rain then tells him that she already has her man and it's Yoke. Vigio starts to have a full-blown panic attack as he loses his mind. Soon after that, guild members arrive to arrest him and take him in. Yoke realizes that he can now use dark magic because of that scar the Queen of Death gave him. Still, he realizes that every time he uses the magic, his life gets shorter and shorter, and he loses life energy. Yoke knows that he can only use that type of magic very rarely, and he hopes that he does never have to use it again. The group decides to relax for a bit. Yoke knows he has to save his strength. He uses a lot of dark magic and other types of mana. He has to heal himself. Suddenly, they get a message over the TV. Jamie seems to be alive and she is asking for help. The transmission is short, but it's clearly Jamie and her voice. While the search parties have been unable to find her, now there is evidence that she survived the Orc tribe and is somewhere in the endless darkness. Yoke cannot just sit by, he wants to save her life. The girls also agree and they feel bad that Jamie was left behind in that fight. Yoke then talks with the dungeon master about going back inside. The guild master does not think this is a good idea at all. It's too dangerous. Yoke then tries to convince him that he knows of a way down there. Yoke knows how to save Jamie. The guild masters tell Yoke to convince him, otherwise he will not help them. Endless Darkness Dungeon isn't changing people inside or getting teleported. This is the working theory that Yoke has. He has realized this from all their exploration. While for hundreds of years people thought that this dungeon was changing, Yoke realized that the people inside could teleport to different locations. This can be done when a person wants to travel to a certain part of the dungeon, but still Yoke has to find a way to activate the teleportation. After hearing him out, the guild master still refuses to help them. It turns out this was just a joke from his side. He tells Yoke that he will not help them, but still will meet them in the entrance and wait for them. Yoke tells his girls it's time to gear up cause tomorrow they are going back into the Endless Darkness Dungeon. The guild master told Yoke that the dungeon would be closed down when they returned, so they better hurry up. Yoke and the girls put on all their best gear and get ready for operation, rescue Jamie and don't get killed in the process. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door. When Yoke opens the doors, he is shocked to find that the legendary hero Lucent Wayne has come to send them off. Lucent is a legend among the adventurers, and he is here to offer something to Yoke and his party. Lucent takes out a scroll of exit. This is the same thing that saved them before, that can teleport them out of the dungeon when things get too dangerous. Still, before Lucent gives the scroll to Yoke, he wants to test him. He asks Yoke why he's going down there in the most dangerous dungeon to save Jamie. Yoke explains that he wants to save a friend. Lucent fires back that she was part of a horrible party that did many crimes. Yoke replies that this should not matter and that saving someone is more important. Lucent in that moment wishes him and his girls a safe trip and leaves the scroll with him. Finally, the Clover party arrives at the entrance of the Endless Darkness Dungeon. The guild master wishes them luck as they enter the gates. As they explore the dungeon, they realize that a lot has changed, and it seems like the dungeon is collapsing and crashing all the time. Yoke is certain that they can get to Jamie, they just have to be focused and careful. After exploring for a while, their first challenge appears. This time it's giant slime monsters with many eyes. With no other choice, the Clover party starts to form their plan of attack. Yoke starts to explain how powerful these monsters are. They have many eyes, but not a lot of weak points. Basically, they are just slime monsters that are very hard to defeat. Yoki thinks his party has to find weak points and focus on those. Even still, it will be difficult. Marina and Silk came up with a great plan. Marina will cut down the monsters in many pieces until they can spot their weak parts. Then Silk will use her bow and arrow to shoot them down. Yoke will also use his magic to freeze them so they are easier to target. The entire party agrees and they get to work. The monsters jump on them right away, but Yoke and his girls are ready. They dodge the monsters and start attacking them. Marina is crazy with her samurai slashes, and she really gives a lot of openings for the rest of the party. The battle is intense, but the Clover party can solve any issues if they work together.